Welcome back to CrimePod Castle Unsolved Mystery Series, episode 59.
59.
This week, we're diving deep into a case that's both intriguing and unsettling. The death of Professor Rohtas Kumar at the prestigious Banaras Hindu University in 2019.
Yeah, what's particularly captivating about this case is the setting BHU, steeped in history and known for its academic excellence, becomes the backdrop for this unsolved mystery. Professor Kumar, a respected geography professor, was found dead in his faculty housing, and the circumstances surrounding his death are shrouded in ambiguity.
Yeah, it sounds like a crime novel set in the hallowed halls of academia. We have a beloved professor respected by his students and peers, but there are whispers of something more, something that might have made him a target.
Exactly. Professor Kumar wasn't just a dedicated educator, he was also a vocal advocate for change within BHU. He was known to challenge the status quo, particularly when it came to issues like favoritism in faculty appointments and lack of transparency in university decision-making.
So we have a professor who was loved by many, but who also ruffled some feathers along the way. It begs the question, could his advocacy have made him enemies? Could someone have wanted to silence him?
That's one of the central questions that investigators grappled with. To understand the complexities of this case, we need to go back to that fateful morning of October 15th, 2019. Picture this. The BHU campus bustling with activity students hurrying to classes, professors preparing for their lectures. But in the quiet of Professor Kumar's faculty residence, a housekeeper makes a chilling discovery.
Okay, walk me through this. What exactly did the housekeeper find?
Professor Kumar's body was discovered lying on the floor of his living room. His body was in an awkward position suggesting a fall, and there were visible signs of head trauma.
That detail about the body's position, that's what always gets me in these cases. It's like trying to decipher a secret code, trying to understand how the body ended up that way. Were there any other details at the scene that stood out?
There were a few details that added to the unsettling nature of the scene. An open book rested nearby, as if Professor Kumar had been interrupted in the middle of reading. A glass of water sat half full untouched. These details painted a picture of normalcy, of a routine morning, starkly contrasted with the grim reality of Professor Kumar's lifeless form.
Those details, the book, the water, it's almost as if they're frozen in time.
Yeah.
A snapshot of the moments before tragedy struck. It's almost too eerie. Did the police suspect foul play from the start?
Well, the initial assumption, given the apparent fall and head trauma, might have been a tragic accident, perhaps a medical emergency leading to a fatal fall. However, as investigators began to examine the scene more closely, inconsistencies emerged. The severity of the head injuries seemed disproportionate to a simple fall within the confines of his living room.
So right from the beginning, there were red flags, details that didn't quite add up. Did the autopsy shed any light on the cause of death?
The autopsy report confirmed that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. However, it couldn't definitively determine whether those injuries were caused by a fall or by an external force. This ambiguity fueled the mystery. Was it a tragic accident, or was there something more sinister at play?
That ambiguity is like a breeding ground for speculation and theories. Were there any other details from the scene that pointed investigators in a particular direction?
There was one detail that significantly shifted the focus of the investigation. Professor Kumar's laptop and a collection of his handwritten research notes were missing from his residence. These weren't just everyday belongings, they were integral to his ongoing work and potentially contained sensitive information related to his research and his advocacy for reform within BHU.
That's a pivotal detail. It suggests that this might not have been a random act of violence. The missing laptop and research notes hint at a possible motive, with someone trying to cover their tracks, or perhaps silence Professor Kumar in his efforts to expose wrongdoing within the university.
The missing items immediately shifted the focus of the investigation. It raised the possibility of a targeted attack, someone silencing Professor Kumar and removing evidence that might have been damaging to them or to the university. But of course, other possibilities had to be considered.
So we have a crime scene that doesn't provide clear answers, an autopsy report that leaves room for doubt, and missing items that suggest a possible motive. This is where the investigation starts to get really interesting, right? Where do the police even begin to unravel this web of complexities?
Yeah, you're right. This is where the investigation becomes a meticulous process of piecing together fragmented clues, analyzing witness statements, and exploring various theories. The police had to consider all angles, and that led them to 4 main theories, each offering a different interpretation of the events that led to Professor Kumar's death.
Okay, so we have these 4 theories swirling around. Let's break them down one by one. Which theory did investigators explore first?
The first theory, and perhaps the most straightforward, was that of an accidental death. Remember, Professor Kumar's body was found in a position that suggested a fall? It's plausible that he could have lost his balance, perhaps, while engrossed in his reading or feeling momentarily unwell, leading to a fatal head injury. The open book, the untouched glass of water, they all seem to support this scenario.
But you mentioned earlier that the severity of the head injuries didn't quite align with a simple fall in his living room. Did that raise doubts about the accidental death theory?
Exactly. The force required to inflict such severe head trauma seemed inconsistent with an accidental fall within that confined space. It's one of the key reasons why investigators began to explore other possibilities. And of course, there's the issue of the missing laptop and research notes. If it was a simple accident, why would those items vanish?
It's like those missing items are intentionally trying to misdirect us, leading us away from the simplest explanation. It almost feels like someone wanted to make it look like an accident, but then got sloppy and left behind these glaring inconsistencies.
The missing items undoubtedly cast a shadow of suspicion over the accidental death theory. It brings us to the second theory, the one that's perhaps the most intriguing and unsettling, a targeted attack. We know Professor Kumar was outspoken, a vocal critic of certain practices within BHU. It's possible that someone threatened by his advocacy decided to silence him.
So this theory hinges on the idea that Professor Kumar's efforts to expose wrongdoing, his challenges to the established order within BHU, made him a target. Did investigators find any evidence to support this theory? Anything that pointed to a specific individual or group who might have wanted to harm him?
Well, while the investigation didn't publicly name any suspects, it's important to consider the context of Professor Kumar's work. He was openly critical of favoritism in faculty appointments, advocating for a more transparent and merit-based system. He had also raised concerns about the allocation of university resources, questioning whether they were being used effectively and ethically. These actions, while commendable from a moral standpoint, could have created powerful enemies within the university.
It's fascinating how a pursuit of truth and justice can sometimes lead to danger, especially when challenging those in positions of power. It's a classic David and Goliath scenario, isn't it? Did the investigators uncover any specific instances where Professor Kumar's actions might have directly threatened someone's position or reputation within BHU?
There were certainly individuals within the university who had clashed with Professor Kumar over his reform efforts. Colleagues who benefited from the very systems he criticized, administrators who felt their authority challenged. These were all potential sources of conflict. Investigators explored these connections looking for any signs of animosity that might have escalated to violence.
It's like trying to untangle a web of relationships, trying to understand the power dynamics and hidden agendas within BHU. Was there any evidence that Professor Kumar had received threats prior to his death? Anything that suggested he feared for his safety?
While there were no reports of direct threats, those close to Professor Kumar described him as increasingly concerned about the potential repercussions of his actions. He had confided in colleagues about feeling isolated, about sensing a growing resistance to his reform efforts.
It's chilling to think that someone who dedicated their life to education and the pursuit of knowledge could become a target simply for speaking truth to power. It raises questions about the very nature of academic freedom and the risks associated with challenging the status quo. What about the missing laptop and research notes? Did investigators believe they contained information that could have implicated someone within BHU?
The missing items were a crucial piece of the puzzle. Investigators theorized that Professor Kumar's research, particularly his investigations into the financial dealings of the university, might have uncovered evidence of corruption or misconduct. The removal of these items could have been an attempt to protect those involved and prevent a potential scandal.
It's like something out of a spy thriller. A race against time to expose wrongdoing before those responsible can cover their tracks. Did investigators find any traces of the missing items? Any clues that suggested where they might have been taken or who might have taken them?
Unfortunately, the missing laptop and research notes were never recovered. Investigators explored various avenues, searching Professor Kumar's office, interviewing colleagues and students, even examining his online activity for any clues that might point to their whereabouts. But the trail ran cold.
It's frustrating, isn't it? To have this tantalizing piece of the puzzle, this potential smoking gun, but be unable to locate it. It's like a phantom clue always present in our minds, but elusive in reality. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've explored the accidental death theory and the targeted attack theory. What other possibilities did investigators consider?
The third theory revolved around the possibility of a robbery gone wrong. The missing laptop and research notes, especially the laptop, could have been seen as valuable items. It's possible that someone, perhaps an opportunist with knowledge of Professor Kumar's routine, broke into his residence intending to steal these items.
But wouldn't a simple robbery leave behind some obvious signs? Forced entry, ransacked belongings, something that indicated a struggle. Didn't we establish earlier that the scene seems strangely undisturbed, except for the missing items?
You're absolutely right. The lack of forced entry, the overall orderliness of the scene, these were significant inconsistencies with the robbery theory. If it was a random robbery, why wouldn't the perpetrator have taken more valuables? Why leave behind other electronics jewelry cache? It just didn't add up.
It's almost as if someone wanted to stage a robbery, but then got spooked, grabbed the laptop and research notes, and fled the scene before they could create more of a mess. It's a bizarre scenario, isn't it? A meticulously planned robbery that suddenly turns into a panicked escape. Did investigators explore the possibility that the robbery was staged?
They did. Investigators considered whether the scene had been deliberately manipulated, whether someone had attempted to create the illusion of a robbery to cover up their true motive, but they couldn't find any conclusive evidence to support this theory. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints or DNA evidence that pointed to an unknown intruder. It was a perplexing situation.
So we've ruled out accidental death and a random robbery. We're left with the targeted attack theory, which seems to have the most supporting evidence but still lacks that definitive link to a specific perpetrator.
What about the fourth theory? What other possibilities did investigators explore?
The fourth theory focused on the possibility of a personal dispute. While Professor Kumar was widely respected for his professionalism and integrity, investigators had to consider whether there were any personal conflicts in his life that might have escalated to violence.
This theory seems to shift the focus away from Professor Kumar's professional life and delve into his personal relationships. Did investigators uncover any evidence of animosity or conflict in his personal life? Any hidden resentments or secrets that might have led to violence? Professor Kumar was known for his amicable nature and his dedication to his work. He was described by colleagues and students as approachable, supportive, and genuinely invested in their well-being. However, even the most seemingly harmonious lives can harbor hidden conflicts.
It's true. We all wear masks, project an image of ourselves to the world, but beneath the surface, there might be simmering tensions, unresolved disputes, secrets we desperately try to conceal. Did investigators uncover any specific individuals who might have harbored ill will towards Professor Kumar in his personal life?
Well, while the investigation didn't publicly name any suspects, there were whispers, rumors circulating among faculty and staff, unconfirmed accounts of disagreements, perhaps a personal rivalry that had turned sour. However, nothing substantial enough to solidify this theory as the primary explanation.
So we have four distinct theories, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. It's like a puzzle where the pieces don't quite fit together perfectly. What happened after the initial investigation? Does any of these theories gain more traction?
Yeah, that's what we'll delve into after we've had a moment to gather our thoughts. We'll explore the aftermath of the investigation, the lasting impact of Professor Kumar's death on the BHU community, and most importantly, the lingering questions that continue to haunt this case.
Welcome back to CrimePod Castle Unsolved Mystery Series, Episode 59. We've been meticulously examining the theories surrounding the mysterious death of Professor Rohtas Kumar at Banaras Hindu University. We've considered accidental death, a targeted attack, a robbery gone wrong, and even a personal dispute. Each theory has its allure, but none seem to fully explain the puzzle we're facing. So where did the investigation go from there?
That's the frustrating part of this case. Despite extensive efforts, none of the theories were definitively proven. The case officially remains unsolved, leaving a cloud of uncertainty hanging over BHU and those who knew Professor Kumar.
Yeah, that must be incredibly difficult for his family and friends, not knowing for certain what happened to him. It's one thing to grieve a loss, but it's another thing entirely to grapple with the unknown, the unanswered questions that linger like ghosts in the aftermath of tragedy. Did the investigation ever officially close? Or is there still hope that new evidence might emerge someday?
Well, while the initial investigation reached an impasse, the case hasn't been forgotten. It remains open, and there's always the possibility that new information or advancements in forensic technology could shed light on what truly transpired. Professor Kumar's family continues to advocate for a thorough review of the evidence, hoping that one day the truth will finally be revealed.
It's a testament to their resilience and their unwavering belief that justice, even if delayed, is still possible. But beyond the quest for answers, I wonder about the impact this tragedy had on BHU. How did the university respond to the death of one of their own? A professor who had dedicated his life to their institution.
Professor Kumar's death sent shockwaves through the BHU community. Students mourned the loss of a respected mentor, a professor known for his engaging lectures and his genuine care for their academic success. Colleagues grappled with the unsettling reality that one of their own, someone they had worked alongside, shared ideas with, and considered a friend, had met such a tragic and mysterious end.
Yeah, it's like a rupture in the fabric of their academic world. A sudden realization that even within the seemingly safe and intellectual confines of a university, darkness can lurk, and tragedy can strike unexpectedly. Did this event lead to any changes within BHU? Any efforts to address the issues Professor Kumar had so passionately championed?
The incident sparked important discussions about campus safety transparency within university administration and the need for stronger measures to protect those who speak truth to power. Some reforms were initiated, including enhanced security measures in faculty housing areas and a review of procedures for reporting and investigating allegations of misconduct. However, many believe that more could have been done to address the systemic problems that Professor Kumar had so courageously brought to light.
It's a reminder that sometimes institutions are slow to change, resistant to self-reflection, even when confronted with a tragedy that exposes their flaws. It makes you wonder if Professor Kumar's death could have been prevented if those in power had listened to his concerns, addressed the issues he raised, instead of dismissing him as a troublemaker or a threat to their authority.
It's a difficult question to answer definitively, but his death certainly serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that institutions, no matter how prestigious or well-intentioned, are not immune to corruption, to the abuse of power, to the silencing of dissenting voices.
It's a stark reminder that the pursuit of truth, the quest for justice, can sometimes be met with resistance, with danger, even within environments that are supposed to be dedicated to knowledge and enlightenment. What do you think is the most important takeaway from this case for our listeners? What lessons can we learn from the tragic death of Professor Rohtas Kumar?
I think the most important takeaway is the importance of speaking truth to power, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it carries risks. Professor Kumar could have chosen to remain silent, to ignore the injustices he witnessed. But he chose to speak up, to advocate for change, and in doing so, he left behind a legacy that continues to inspire others to fight for what is right.
It's a powerful message, and one that resonates deeply in a world where corruption, abuse of power, and the suppression of dissenting voices are still prevalent. Professor Kumar's story, though shrouded in mystery and tragedy, reminds us that each of us has a voice, and that using that voice to challenge injustice, to demand accountability, is a powerful act of courage and a vital step towards creating a more just and equitable society. As we conclude this deep dive into the mysterious death of Professor Rohtas Kumar, we're left with more questions than answers. But perhaps that's the point. Perhaps the true value of exploring these unsolved mysteries lies not in finding definitive solutions, but in engaging in thoughtful discussion, in challenging assumptions, in keeping these stories alive, and in honoring the memories of those whose lives were cut short.
And remember, if anyone listening has any information, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, that could shed light on this case, please come forward. Don't let the silence perpetuate the mystery.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of a complex and unresolved case. We encourage you to continue the conversation, to share your thoughts and theories, and to never stop seeking the truth. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysterious world of unsolved crimes, be sure to subscribe to CrimePod Castle and follow us on social media for more captivating stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.